Last episode, Ukraine invaded me shortly after our coalitions clashed in a battle of epic proportions. And after repelling the invading force, it showed how far my forces had come. But it also revealed my biggest weakness. So today, join me as we uncover this weakness and find out whether it proves to be the end of my nation or its rebirth. Day 36, a new front. After the surprise attack by Myanmar and the following war between us, which resulted in a ceasefire and the loss of a large part of its territory, Myanmar had reorganized its current forces to protect its last remaining city. But the ceasefire wasn't holding up very well, and with tensions rising once again, the decision was made to complete the capture of its territory. With that decision made, a division of the Royal Thai forces was mobilized to its remaining border. But with this new war flaring up, I was made aware of a potential problem. With this war and the increased spending in order to prepare for the next attack by the European coalition, opened a very important question. Would my economy be able to handle it? Day 37 to 42, recruitment drive. By day 37, I managed to complete the capture of Myanmar, and with the fall of his government and military, there was no more threat to my western border. But however, I was made aware of a big issue. It was on this day that my cabinet made me aware that my economic numbers were starting to go down. Essentially, what that means is the surplus production that I was depending on to mobilize and expand my armed forces was starting to decline, because the cost of maintaining my army was going up. But what was the most concerning was the recruitment numbers were beginning to fall, and fast, meaning that I wasn't getting enough volunteers and enlisted men and women to join the army. To counteract the effects of falling volunteers, I began investing heavily into recruitment centers throughout my homeland territories, in the hopes that it would begin to increase the numbers again. Day 38, the trend of declining numbers continued, but on the other hand, my coalition partner, Indonesia, was taking advantage of the fall of the Afghan government and began preparations to invade the country. Day 40, I continued my investment into my recruitment program and began looking into the future of my armed forces. And after some deep thinking, I decided to invest in cruise missiles, because cruise missiles are like soldiers that don't need people to operate. By day 40, our recruitment numbers were not improving. So, in an act of desperation, I began investing into recruitment centers in our occupied territories. And by day 43, with the recruitment numbers still nosediving, I decided to double down on my investments. But on the other hand, my investment into cruise missiles was proving fruitful. I also began shuffling my troops around the border to improve my defensive posture in the case of a second war with Ukraine. Meanwhile, Indonesia was making some pretty decent progress on Afghanistan. Day 45, the dawn of a new era. Indonesia was back at war with the Europeans. Honestly, I don't know what he was thinking, and I believe he should have known better. After all we've been through, the previous war had scared my coalition. Not only did we lose 3 members, Indonesia and I weren't communicating anymore. Either way, my nation wasn't ready for a third war, and I began distancing myself from him. Meanwhile, Ukraine had advanced the capabilities of its military with new, more resilient bombers and missiles. It was also during this point when I began investing into chemical weapons, and I announced my intentions to acquire nuclear weapons. So, I began preparing for this day by advancing my labs. Day 46 to 50. a new chapter. Indonesia continued to take a beating from the European coalition as they spent everything they had on him. Ukraine continued to launch a brutal chemical weapons campaign against him and his people, and this was officially the start of the end of my coalition. But as one door closes, a new one opens, and Ukraine asked me to officially join his coalition. But I decided to take his offer into consideration. By day 47, my economy took another hit after a new wave of military mobilizations and equipment upgrades forced me to make massive orders on the international market for resources. By day 48 and 49, we made a massive breakthrough as my scientists not only completed their first chemical weapon bomb, but finally began the development of our nuclear weapons program. I was finally becoming a nuclear power, and my stance to use these weapons was either to defend myself or use it as a first or preemptive strike. But by day 50, alarm bells began to ring throughout my office as suddenly and unexpectedly I had 0 recruits, and this day marked the beginning of my recruitment crisis. Day 52, a big decision. In the face of my recruitment and economic crisis, I decided to launch Project One Nation. The aim of the project was to empower our occupied territories to drive recruitment and economic numbers upwards. By building recruitment centers and armed industries, to build up a sense of joint identity and to try and assimilate them and hopefully annex the territories in future. It was on this day that the big red button was installed on my desk in the presidential office. Yes, that's right. We officially have nuclear weapons. Our nation is one of 2 nuclear powers in this game, and it was awesome. But at the end of the day, I was left with a big decision. It was the time and the season for Thailand to shift geopolitically. For my former and current coalition mates, it was an honor fighting with you. But it was time for Thailand to leave the coalition as the Indonesian government fell from the war against the Europeans. Day 54. The end of the Southeast Asian Coalition. As mentioned by the title, the Southeast Asian Coalition is officially over, as my nation disbands it and the Indonesian government falls. But on the other end, it was actually a good day for my country, as my government successfully navigated the complex political situation and turned our enemy into our ally. And now I had time on my side. And the stress of a new war popping up was once again gone. I was planning on using this time to build more nuclear bombs and expand my nation like I promised my people. Day 55, friend to foe. I officially joined the Europeans, taking the space once filled by a powerful Afghanistan. I finally joined the coalition that had been challenging the power of my coalition for over 30 days. But this opens the door for the Thai flag to spread across the world and fulfill the promise I made to my people when I obtained the seat. In my new position, I now set my sights on occupied India and my former ally, Australia. But at this point, victory is pretty much guaranteed. Well guys, if you like this video and watch till the end, you are a real soldier. If you truly enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Otherwise, see you all on the final front.